We have some students here, I see, so this isn't geared towards them, obviously. Some are younger than probably our high school age, and I saw some high schoolers come in that I guess missed the presentation we did here. That is Tyler's Light. I believe it was in the fall, or was it spring of last year? You guys remember? I can't remember, it's been hundreds of schools ago. We'll get to see all three high schools in Olentangy and their student bodies. This is an ideal setting to talk to them because you can walk around. Instead of talking at them, you talk to them, get them to participate. I believe over at Orange, we had to use the big old gym, so that's kind of tough because that kid that's 3,000 feet away, I don't know if he's listening or not, you can't really get there and shake him a little bit. So what we're going to do is give you a little glimpse of what Tyler's Light is, what we do, and we're going to focus on a lot of prescription medication that ultimately turns to heroin in our society nowadays. I have two speakers. Red, so we didn't change the battery. Try it again. Did you put a battery?
No, did you bump the bottom of it? Because that's where the heat is.
User error. With me is Becky Wilkins. She's going to talk to you. She is an employee at OSU Wexner Medical Center, as an employee there and as a mom of an addict. And Gary Cameron is former narcotics commander for Columbus Police, and now he's a regular commander, whatever that means. He's just not in narcotics right now. He's going to talk to you from the law enforcement side and as a parent, because we'll lift his cover when you see this first video. So we're going to do it like we do with the students. We're going to show you video, because we're all visual learners, and you don't want to listen to me talk for 30 or 40 minutes. In this first video you're going to see is some statistics, and we're going to ask you to repeat them back. I will give you some Tyler's Light swag for doing so, and we'll see how participative you are compared to students. And as you see how you all came in and sat, don't ever tell the kids, how come you didn't sit in the front row? You didn't. Best seats in the house here, but I get it. So, Gary didn't bring his glasses, so I got to play my own videos now. So, again, there's some stats going across here, and you're going to find a little bit more about what Tyler's Light does.
Tyler's Light was formed because of a tragedy that happened in our family. Our oldest son was prescribed prescription pills because of surgery, and that resulted in addiction and soon led to heroin and a fatal overdose. We're doing news stories all the time, overdosing and kids being arrested. It's an eye-opening statistic that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. We're not going to arrest our way out of this problem. This isn't a law enforcement problem as much as it is a community problem.
To date, the drug addict is the kid that I see walking down the hall, or it's the adult that's at the grocery store that passes me and says hi, or it's the person at church sitting next to me. So it's not a school issue, it's definitely a community issue.
I don't think parents understand how quickly young people have access to drugs and alcohol, and it can be delivered to you. It comes in all different forms today. You can even order it on the internet, and that's baffling.
She smoked heroin the first time, and it just gripped her immediately. This was not a legacy that she wanted or I wanted for her. But if we can help another family and save a life, then I believe that's my journey now.
Tyler's Light's main focus is to educate our youth and community through live presentations. We are a community-based, nonprofit organization made up of a few hundred volunteers dedicated to making a difference.
I think the mission of Tyler's Light is so vital to the success of young people in recovery because they truly have a whole community behind them.
The biggest reason that I'm a part of Tyler's Light is to change what people think the face of a heroin addict is and to help make people aware.
Organizations, including Tyler's Light, we're giving information to people. They're showing up, having these programs available free of charge.
I think as business leaders, owners, and operators, we do have an obligation to get involved, educate the youth.
Our students need to hear a message that says, if you use, this is what could happen to you. This is what you're going to put your family through.
You know, I'm one of the lucky parents because my son's still alive. If you're burying your head in the sand, you're just setting yourself up and your child up for failure.
Being honest with them and talking about it and the reality that you can die from this, it's very important that they have those conversations.
You can help your community by supporting Tyler's Light through contributions, being a sponsor, volunteering your time, or referring us to schools, businesses, churches, so we can do our live presentation. In the short amount of time since Tyler's Light was formed, we've spoken to students, parents, people in the community. And through our research, we found that we are making a difference.
So that's what Tyler's Light is in a nutshell. We're going to blow our own horn here for a second. I'm assuming most of you watch TV, right? We've been fortunate enough to be on, which shows have you seen us on? 60 Minutes, CBS 60 Minutes, that's a big deal. Anywhere else? HBO Real Sports, is it Bryant Gumbel, Sold Out O'Brien. Did a documentary with DirecTV called Locker Room Addiction, excuse me. So we've been fortunate because we've been pushing the envelope and keep kicking in doors and not taking in with just like a bull in a china shop, trying to get this message out. And sometimes these places take notice. As you see, Channel 6 shows up here. I don't know if they come to all of your events, but this topic is as hot as anything any politician can bring out. This is on everybody's lips. It's in the newspaper every day. It's on the news every day. So I got a couple giveaways here. And I'm going to start with this side of the room. So which parent is going to go first and say, all right, that one of those stats you saw, it was in blue rolling across the street. And I'll pick you out if you don't raise your hand. Embarrass crap out of it. We're going to start with you, Chris. What statistic did you see that was new, alarming, significant? Of? I'm not going to let you off the hook. Did a freebie here, come on. I picked Chris because we're from the same hometown, Eastern Ohio, so I just checked in. So his daughter's going to help him out. Afterwards, okay. We're just going to hand him one. We'll just pass that down because that wasn't a good stat, but that's at the end. In blue, 85% though. Anybody want to type 85% what you saw in the blue highlighted part at the beginning of the video? Who was it? Almost. She's got it.
Just one of those statistics?
Yeah, just one of them.
Or one person dies of drug overdose every 5 hours in Ohio.
There we go. She got one. Now, we have to somehow finish the other one. She said one person dies every 5 hours in the state of Ohio to an accidental overdose. And here's how things get dated. Tyler's Light was started in 2012. At that time, the number was 4 a day. This video was made about a year or two later. It went to 5. Guess what the number is right now, according to the CDC and Attorney General's office? It's a lot a day. 7 a day. So Ohio is losing 7 people per day, just our state, to an accidental overdose, and then you multiply that by 7 days a week. Those are some alarming numbers. That's 50 on average per week. Surpassed car crashes. Actually, 5 years ago, surpassed car crashes, and that was #1 leading cause of accidental death for 50 years. And it's no longer just in first place, it is 1.5 times more than car crashes. It went blazing past it. Serious issue here. So give me another statistic that you saw there. Yes?
85% of juvenile court cases are drug related.
There we go. And that's what maybe Chris was alluding to at the beginning, I don't know, but 85% of all juvenile court cases are drug related. Do you think that bogs down our court systems? Absolutely. Give me another statistic there. I heard it was an ER. There it is back here. What's that?
Number one reason for
Yes.
years is drugs.
Does anybody in the healthcare industry or work in hospitals here? Raise their hand, anybody? So, did you know that statistic? #1 reason for ER visits in Ohio and the U.S., drug-related incidents. That's kind of hard. So, our healthcare system, emergency rooms getting bogged down, the judicial system, Rex homes, it is, again, it's the hottest topic going right now. It's affecting more of our communities than anything. What we do, again, go into schools, try to convince the youth, show them a bunch of statistics, how bad this is, how one drug is related to the other one, and then asking them to speak up. We do not ever once say, don't do drugs. The old saying, remember what it's been for 40 years? Nancy Reagan started it. Our national drug slogan is,
Just say no.
just say no. Simple as can be. Did it work? It didn't work too good. But maybe 40 years ago it did because there was a big marijuana issue. So we kind of used the psychology of our young people. And before we made these videos and created a presentation was to find out what they would listen to, what they would not listen to. So we got a group of them together. And high schoolers, middle schoolers, some college kids. And the first thing they said was this: don't tell us what to do. So you got to make a message, but you're not going to tell them what to do. Now you get creative, right? Number 2 is it better be real, something very real. Well, you know, the death of a student it's real. When you bring in the fact that I'm there in front of them and that's my son, that's very real. The room just kind of goes hush when they find out. We don't find out about 15, 20 minutes into the program, but so we use that and we try to get them to talk because they're going to be the first line of defense. They will see something happening way before a parent, no matter how nosy we are or how intelligent we think we are or in tune to students. You're not going to know at all. So that's our message there. What I'm going to do, and because this is a parent group and we got a few kids sprinkled in and out of here, I'm going to play. You can't see it, can you? I'm going to play a couple of these animations, and number 1 will be the what to watch for. Actually, let's just go with this. Let's go with Emily. That's one. Yes. This is a young. These are called testimonials. We'll show a couple of these for the students. This one's kind of geared for parents because she talks to you and tells you here's some signs to look for in 3 or 4 minutes. So go ahead and play that one, Gary.
I graduated in 2008 from Pigrington North. But in high school, I was the fun, outgoing, energetic. I like to have fun with my friends, party, and do what typical high schooler students do. Drugs came into my life after I went to college. I got severely depressed while I was there. It was for fall quarter. It was everything that I just didn't expect that. I wanted to leave, this wasn't for me, and threatened to kill myself. I said, this isn't it, this isn't what I want to do. These drugs were put right in front of my face, and I thought, this is going to make all my worries go away. I won't have to think about anything, my depression, my family, my friends, it literally erased everything from me. Lost all feelings, lost all hope, and it just spiraled out of control. And it was seriously in a blink of an eye. I forgot about everything. Everything. There was just nothing that mattered to me anymore. And what I lost the most was myself. I stopped caring about myself. And it's because I was under the influence of those drugs. They took away a sense of hope. Drugs literally block your mind from everything. I could not make any type of rational decision under the influence. If it wasn't for my parents and friends, I would not be here today. Because my parents found out what was going on. They had no idea. No idea. My friends told me, like, we will tell your parents. We are going to tell your parents. And I just begged them, don't tell my parents. I'll get clean. Don't tell them. I didn't care if anyone else knew. I just did not want my parents to know. My best friend spoke up, told their mom. My friend told her mom, because of her, I'm here today, and because my friend spoke up and wanted to say, like, this isn't Emily, this isn't who she is, this isn't what she should be doing, we want her back at school with us, having fun, enjoying life, and, I wasn't at the point, and the fact that they spoke up and told somebody is what truly pulled me away from the situation. There are signs you have to look at, pupils is one. I mean, my mom still today is like, what's going on with your eyes, Just your emotions, the way that you talk, the way that you present yourself. I became so aggressive. I just would snap at my mom, like, no, shut up, and she just thought that was just, hormones or, just going through your whatever, being a girl, arguing with your parents. But the case was that I was high, or I was waiting to get high. That's all you cared about. Parents should be thinking about who their children are hanging out with, for one, what type of environment they're at, and there are signs and signals to look for. I mean, I went to a cookout and had bruises on my arms. Wow, I said, what happened? Oh, I got hit with a baseball. Okay, no, because we wouldn't think you were ever doing that. So for parents, they need to just be aware that it can happen to anyone. You would never think it would, but it really can. It can be any person.
So a lot of our, I guess we'll call them testimonials, personal stories, they came from the Pickerington area because that's where I live, and it was easy to find 10 or 20 of them. But I can go to any community and find 10 or 20 people, and they had to be willing to do what? Tell their story. They knew it was going to go viral, so it's on YouTube. They're young people starting their careers. That's a risky move, because if you're an employer and all of a sudden Emily comes in and you start doing it, and I know most of these employers now, they get on Facebooks and try to do a little research on people. You can just Google her and you'll find out that she did this testimonial and all those others, and then you have that that decision to make. Do I look at her as, I don't want that issue, or do I look at her as, that's a person that's, did something for young people, for the community, for the betterment of someone else? I would think it'd be great to hire somebody like that. So that's a risky move they took. I don't know if they like how they did it now, because it's kind of everywhere. They've been watched millions of times. But she has a unique story, and it's about speaking up. Her best friend went to her own mother. Mom, Emily's using, it's out of control. She's down at OU, and it's too much, it's scaring me. So Emily's mom and that other woman, our best friends, calls her at work, says, hey, listen, and that's a tough conversation with your friend, is saying, hey, listen, it's just a rumor, not for sure, I don't have proof, but word has it that this, Emily's doing this. How do you think Emily's mom reacted to that? F-bomb. How dare you, my daughter would never, right? That's that normal, because if you didn't recognize it yourself, you would never say, oh, yeah, I see those signs too. So she asked a few questions when she came home for a weekend, and they were going shopping every weekend like normal mothers and daughters do. So she didn't get a warm and fuzzy feeling from those questions, took her down, had an assessment, found out she was a 2-year heroin addict. No idea. And again, didn't show the signs, so parents, suburban parents can get blindsided because your first natural reaction is to say, it's not my kid, it's not going to happen in my house, not on my side of the street, but it does. This issue right now with opiates, when you hear heroin makes all the headlines right now. Heroin doesn't stand alone. You'll hear some more from Gary about this, but heroin is only here for the simple fact that we have a prescription pill issue. It follows it. Percocet, Vicodin, Oxycontin, 3 names of prescription pain medication that are opiate-based. It's identical to heroin. So heroin was still being like it was in the 70s. We never heard it, but it was really an urban drug at that time. Middle-aged men used it. Now it's suburban, rural teenagers. That's kind of scary, isn't it? And then all those accidental deaths that we're having, 7 per day, 50 a week just in Ohio. Average age is at 18 to 28. So they're very young, but they start using these prescription pills. They're so easy to get to because they're in everybody's medicine cabinets. Our students share them like it's Skittles. You want to study for a test? Take one of these. You need to relax? Take one of these. It's a culture we created. Before I forget, if you are interested in this at all, if this subject interests you, there's a book that just came out last year called Dreamland. Put it in your phone. I see a head nod. Did you read it already? Could you give a testimonial to it? Dreamland is the author Sam, pronounced Quinones, but it's Quinones, Quinones. That's like the guy's name that does that. What would you do if? So he's a leading authority in the U.S. on black tar heroin. Went into Mexico and lived for 5 years. And then as he's doing research, he could not figure out why he kept reading articles about people overdosing in West Virginia and Kentucky and Ohio from heroin. He said, it's never crossed the Mississippi. What the heck's going on? So he came out here and did some research, and after about a year of it, he found out and figured out that the opiate epidemic, prescription pill epidemic, started in southern Ohio. We are the creators of it in the late 90s. But we didn't do it intentionally. The medical industry said, hey, in 1998, 99, somewhere in there, they're going to make pain the fifth vital sign, and we're going to treat chronic pain with prescription medication. That's when the floodgates opened. If you guys remember watching TV, all these pill mills were opening up, and Attorney General was running around like they, stopping one, another one pop open. And so that's kind of what started there. But this opiate epidemic starts in Ohio. At the same time, black tar heroin comes out of Mexico, and they complement each other. Just coincidentally that these two things are in U.S. history at the same time. And mortality rates are worse than any drug epidemic we've ever had. So we got kind of a perfect storm that happened. But a lot of it starts in the simple being prescribed and in medicine cabinets. Let me show a couple little other quick ones, and then we're going to turn this thing over to just go what to watch for.
So, what can you do? Use your gut instincts. Watch for basic signs that something's not right.
Signs like a sudden change of friends or quitting of after-school activities like sports, bands, clubs, or loss of interest in school or things they once cared about.
Physical changes. Slurred speech. Heavy sweating with lack of physical activity. Extreme fatigue. Itchy skin. Rapid weight loss. Track marks or long-sleeve shirts in warm weather. And also poor hygiene.
Unexplained mood changes or wide mood swings, especially if confronted or questioned.
Suddenly concerned about money, lack of money, asking to borrow money, or even starting to steal.
Flu-like symptoms, skipping school a lot, lack of interest of hanging out or doing things a group of friends would normally do.
Only you can decide to do something to save yourself or someone you love. Don't wait. Speak up and talk to your friends. Speak up and send an anonymous letter. Speak up and tell someone. A teacher, a coach, a parent. Tell someone.
Only you can decide. Don't wait until it's too late. Speak up, save a life.
Now, if with teenagers...
So, what can you do?
As if teenagers, you look at some of those signs and you can be fooled. That's just teenage activity. Remember they go through that phase of, I don't want to take a shower for about a month? Whatever year that is or grade, they do that. So the hygiene, then they get kind of, testy and feelings all over the place. We just think that's normal teenage behavior, so that's hard for us to distinguish. Is that drug use or what is that? Just being a teenager. So those are some tough signs to figure out. Go ahead and fire away on it. This will show you to what degree that we like prescription drugs in the U.S.
Drug use is a worldwide issue.
But the prescription drug situation is desperate in the United States. While only about 5% of the world's population lives in the U.S., we consume more than 80% of all prescription drugs consumed in the entire world. That is a serious problem. 100 people die every day from drug overdoses in the U.S. Every day. How many people are in this room right now? And these people, they're gone forever because they started with just one little pill. So, and when I talk to students, and it's real simple for them because, visual learners, I say, okay, go find a world atlas when you go back to class, which is about wide as my arms. U.S. is about as big as your fist, so we're not a very big land mass, because, people, you're sitting in, I was in New Lexington, Ohio, so they go, I don't know how big we are. Do we have, most of the people in the world? We're small land mass-wise, and we're only 5% of the world's population, but we consume 8% of all the prescription drugs made in the entire world. We're the best customer. Doesn't seem right, does it? So on the law enforcement side, take a shot at what percentage of the world's illicit drugs do you think we use here? And again, that's who follows it, the CDC and Attorney General's offices and law enforcement. What percent of the world's illegal drugs do you think we consume here? To guess. How much? 50? You know, 70, we give you a freebie afterwards. 70%. So you put those two together, we're kind of we're the world's best customer. We're kind of an over-medicated society, aren't we? And it always wasn't this way. And again, if I look at you, and if you're a middle-aged parent somewhere in that 40s, 50s area, you think back to what you were doing as a teenager. What you were doing as a teenager, and it was usually that underage drinking, you found some marijuana or something. These young people have stuff at their disposal that are beyond comprehension to us because all these pills weren't available. So if you were, young before the late 90s, then you didn't see these things. Now there is this is a tongue-in-cheek message for parents. So because we have all these parents here, we're going to show you this one. From the former U.S. drug czar, John Walters. We need to make sure parents understand that they are drug dealers. They are the source of supply. If someone left crack in your home, you wouldn't sit in the messy cabinet and walk away. If someone left heroin in your kitchen, you wouldn't sit on the shelf in the cabinet and hope nobody saw it. You went to some seminar in drug education, they looked at you and said, you parents are the reason this is going on. You're the drug dealers. The kids are going, yeah, Mom, Dad, you guys started this. So that's just something to show you, hey, really, if it were something that you deemed was dangerous, if it were cocaine, something illegal, crack, heroin, it wouldn't be on the shelf, right? It wouldn't be in your cabinet, it wouldn't be in the bathroom, it wouldn't be exposed to your children, but that's kind of how this thing is now, again, because of the prescription drugs. Is there anybody in the real estate industry here, sell homes, anything like that? I see a hand back there. There's one. One of the things we'll tell you, if you guys ever bought or sold a house, if you're going to have a showing or an open house, is, clean the place up, get rid of the clutter, bake a pie, make it smell good, right? The deal. And empty your medicine cabinets now. That gets thrown on at the end because people pose as husband and wife. One goes left, one goes right, to get to the medicine cabinets. That's just a very common theme now because if you look at your medicine cabinets, when you go home tonight, you say, what do I really have here? How much of it's outdated and what are the names of it? When a friend of mine, actually he's related to this guy right here, Atlanta, Georgia, found out about Tyler's light, he goes, what the heck? And he watched a video and he went to his medicine cabinet and he found 180 40 milligram Oxycontin pills. It's $1 a milligram. Street value of that was thousands and thousands. Now, he trusts his daughters, but what about one of his daughter's friends, right, to come over, stay overnight, that whole thing. So he had some back surgeries and stuff, and he's a high school wrestling coach, so gets beat up. So those things were there. And he'd take a few, and then he's done, he'd put them back on the shelf, and it may have been from years ago. So that's kind of where this thing starts. I'm going to turn this thing over, and at the end, we're going to have 15 minutes of questions and answers. That'll open up for you guys to talk about some things you've heard today. So I want to give it to Becky and let her go with her portion of this.
Hi, my name's Becky Wilkins. I am a parent of a recovering heroin addict. I'm also the Associate Director of Ambulatory Services at OSU's Medical Center. I work in family medicine, and fortunately that's given me a unique opportunity to educate myself about my son's illness. I do need to be clear, I'm not here representing OSU. I'm here as a mom to talk to you as a mom. And one thing I do want to talk about is, real quickly, the number of pills that we take as a country is astounding. But you also need to know that as a country, we've set ourselves up for this failure. There's an organization called NCQA, the National Quality Assurance, and they send out patient satisfaction surveys. I'm sure if you've gotten a patient satisfaction survey in the mail. Whether or not you like your doctor, sometimes now, very often, it predicates your doctor's salary. So if you are in pain, and you don't want to be in pain, and that doctor knows you might get one of those surveys, it's really hard sometimes for those doctors to sit down and say, you really don't need these. Let's start with some Advil. And that's a culture shift that I'm an advocate for in this nation, is that we have to come to grips with the fact, as a culture, sometimes we're just going to hurt a little bit. Sometimes 3 Advil and an ice pack is really as good as it needs to get. Because, can you find that slide? I want to show you a slide. We talk about that oxycodone and hydrocodone and heroin are the same drug. Oxycodone is the active ingredient in Percocet. Percocet is oxycodone and Tylenol. Vicodin is hydrocodone and Tylenol, and heroin is heroin. My son's story started with a legitimate prescription of Vicodin from legitimate pain. Nobody asked me, do you have any addiction in your family? Do you have a distant relative that had an alcohol problem? Do you have anybody in your family that has any compulsion disorders? Have you ever noticed your son having any compulsion disorders or exhibiting any of those behaviors? Nobody asked me. He's a teenager. He's ripe for addiction. Now, 6 pills into this prescription, he looked at me and said, Mama, I really like the way these make me feel. May I please have another one? Now, that was a long time ago, 10 years ago, and we didn't know then what we know now. And I knew that I was in trouble, but as I live and breathe, never did I think that story was going to end with my son shooting heroin. Never. I've chased my son through the streets of Tennessee. I've bought my jewelry back from the pawn shop. Never in a million years did I realize I was the drug dealer. I was handing him these pills. I can tell you that 2 years later, when my daughter broke her neck, I threw her Percocet away. She was a little mad. I didn't care. Kids were showing up at the door. Kids I'd never seen before, coming to see her. Took that bottle, said, we're not going to do that. Sometimes we're going to have to hurt. I want to show you this one little slide. Where is it? Now, we got some scientists in here, chemistry teachers, some students taking chemistry. Chemical structures are supposed to be different. Okay? They're supposed to be different. Where'd it go? This is the chemical structure of heroin, of hydrocodone, and oxycodone. And if you have to look pretty close to see what's wrong with this picture, and you'll notice you can stack one right on top of the other. And they're exactly the same. There's an ion or two, a little bit different. But when you go and you pick up your Percocet prescription or your oxycodone prescription, you're picking up pharmaceutical heroin, and you need to start thinking about it as pharmaceutical heroin. And when you say, I'm in pain and I need some opiate pain medication, you really need to be saying, I'm in pain, I need some heroin. Because I believe that if we start calling prescription drugs pharmaceutical heroin, which is basically what it is, we will start to have a new respect for what we are taking and what we are giving our children. Okay, so back to the doctors. The doctors are under the gun to make you happy, and I feel sorry for them. It's very, very difficult sometimes, and patients argue with them, but I want you to start asking your doctor to not give you the pain medicine. Can I go to physical therapy to help my shoulder? Those are things that are really, really important, that we start a culture shift. There's alternative ways to stop hurting. Another thing I really want to talk to you about is the stigma of substance abuse. Right? It's dirty. It's a moral failure. People who have substance abuse problems, it's just they made bad choices and they deserve to lay in that gutter. Well, let's talk a little bit about diabetes. Can anybody turn on the television and not see an advertisement for diabetes medications? Right? They've got your nerve pain, you've got lowering your A1C, you've got injectable insulin pens, because we know we have a diabetic emergency in this country. But we have twice as many people with substance abuse issues as we have diabetics. But I don't see any advertisements for those medications on TV. Okay. Now let's also talk about type 2 diabetes. I'm this far from having type 2 diabetes because my drug of choice is Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. I know I'm going to be a type 2 diabetic if I don't give them up, but when you're close to having diabetes, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to reduce my sugar intake. I'm supposed to increase my consumption of lean proteins, and I'm supposed to increase my cardiovascular exercise. If I do that, I'm probably going to get my A1C down where it needs to be, and I'm not going to end up being a diabetic. If I end up developing diabetes, the first thing they're going to say to me is, well, you need to quit eating carbs, you need to increase your consumption of lean proteins, and you need to increase your cardiovascular exercise, and that's how we're going to manage your diabetes. And if I do that, I will probably be able to manage diabetes. But I might not do that. Or maybe I can't do it enough, or maybe even if I do that, I still can't manage my diabetes. So then I have to go on medication to manage my diabetes. Okay? Started as a bad choice, right? Simple choice. Give up Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. I can't do it. I love them. I love them. So let's talk about the addict. Starts as, I really shouldn't do this. I'm just trying to break away from my mom and dad, or maybe my foot hurts. Maybe I got my wisdom teeth pulled. People forget to think about the dentist. The dentist addicts a lot of people. They don't do it on purpose. That's not my message. But don't forget the dentist writes for pain medication. So you take one, you take another. It starts out as very simple. Think, oh, I like these, maybe I'll take an extra one. You should stop, but you don't. Before you know it, that switch flips in your brain and you need them, okay? You need them. Now, ideally, we're going to manage that addiction through abstinence, But sometimes we can't do that. Sometimes we need medication. So we have people in recovery that are on what's called medicated assisted treatment. That's what my son's on. He's on medicated assisted treatment. There's a lot of people that say he's even a failure as an addict. He had to go on medicine to help beat his addiction. Well, the statistics say 85% of the people that go on medication will make it or have a good shot at making it versus 12% of people that don't. Good enough for me. It's not a moral failing. It started out with me. You know, for some kids it does start out as a choice, but in my case it was a legitimate prescription. It's very, very, very similar in my eyes to what happens with diabetes. There's things we should do, things we could do, things we don't do, and then we end up with the disease. Addiction is a primary disease. When you're a little kid and you get a cold, you lay on that ear and you get an ear infection in your ear. That ear infection is a secondary condition to the primary condition that's your cold. It used to be thought that substance abuse was a secondary condition. It was secondary to depression. Or it was people that needed depression medicine that were self-medicating their depression. Or it was a host of any other reasons, but it wasn't a disease. But it has recently been reclassified as a primary disease, which means it's just like diabetes or cardiovascular disease. It's also a chronic disease, which means that once you have it forever. When I get diabetes, and I'm probably gonna, I'm always gonna be a diabetic. I might manage my diabetes, but I'm always gonna be a diabetic. The same way with an addict. Once you're an addict, you're always an addict. You might manage your addiction, but you're never gonna be, not gonna be an addict. I'll hear people say, well, she used to be an addict. No, if you're really an addict, you're really an addict forever. You never get to let that go. You know, my son's never going to go have a beer with his friends. Never. Alcohol's not his drug of choice. But he'll be the first to tell you. But alcohol lowers my defenses to do things I know I can't do. Excuse me, let me get a drink. The other thing about a chronic disease is it's fatal. And I will tell you, I have sobbed on my knees at my son's feet, not to make me be Wayne. Shamelessly begged him, because he overdosed one day. Luckily, his roommate found him. He was blue. He was blue. He called me. Said, I need you to come down and see me. I sent him away to Tennessee. No parent should have to have that conversation with their child. We have an agreement. Our agreement is he will try really hard not to make me bury him from an overdose. And he's doing very well on his medication. Very well. However, if he dies doing the right thing, he dies in a car crash on the way to work, or if he dies in an accident at work, then I will agree to try to get over his death and move on with my life. I assure you, when I was 28 years old and pregnant with that little boy, wasn't on my radar. Wasn't on my radar. I would do things differently. I don't think my son's addiction is my fault, but I will tell you, I think that children don't get a lot of coping skills, and we put an awful lot of pressure on kids these days. And all drug use, I had a doctor tell me one time, all drug use, over-the-counter prescription, legal, illegal, it doesn't matter. It all starts as a solution to something. And I liked when I heard Emily say, I was at school, I had all these pressures, I wasn't happy, I didn't know what to do. And I took that pill and it took that pain away. And that's what happened to my son too. I was getting divorced, his family was falling apart, he was not real happy, he was at a ripe age for addiction, got a prescription, took that pill, and all of his pain went away. He liked it. He liked it, changed his life forever. I have a daughter with a master's degree, works in research at the James. I have a daughter with a bachelor's degree working on a second bachelor's and a master's degree who does an analytics for an actuary. She tells me I'm not even smart enough to really know what she does. I have a son who wanted to play college hockey and teach high school history. That was his dream. But he works third shift in a factory. Thrilled to have that job because it allows him the schedule that he needs to go take his medicine so he can live another day. Please, if you see a child, or you get that call, I was that parent, I got a couple calls, are you sure? I didn't drop the F-bomb and hang up on him, but I sure didn't want to hear what they had to say. Oh, you must be, really? If you get that call, you need to pay attention. You need to thank the person that had the guts to pick up the phone and call you. We need to change that culture too, in my view. When I was little, I'm older than most of you. When I was little, if another parent called your mom, you were in for it. But today, the person calling seems to be in for it. So I would encourage you, I'm so proud. This is an amazing auditorium full of parents. I think you guys should be really proud that you have this group and that you've been doing it this long. And I encourage you to continue to do that. I'm going to turn it over to Friendly Neighborhood Narco Agent.
So I'm going to break some news tonight. It's not an accident. I fumble over those videos and goof up every now and then. Last year, Wayne referred to me as his Vanna White. And there was no way that I was going to wear that label as being his Vanna White. As Wayne did introduce me, my name is Gary Cameron. I'm a parent volunteer for Tyler's Light. I'm also the former Narcotics Bureau Commander for the Columbus Police Department. I did that gig for 4 years. Now I have the whole northern cap of the city. So if you go into Polaris, Tuttle, Easton, those areas, I supervise all the uniformed people that work those areas. And so I wear two hats here with Tyler's Light, and I do go with Wayne to do school presentations. I'm not going to give you that whole spiel, but touch on a couple things with your children. The message, speak up, save a life, is an incredibly powerful message. And I have literally sat in an auditorium, a gymnasium with 1,500 kids. And they're teenagers, and as you can imagine, they behave like teenagers. And about halfway through, you can literally hear a pin drop. They are glued, they are fixed on to Wayne's message. And to a large extent, and I think you'll agree with me as parents, your teenagers are emotional creatures. And we're able to tap into that emotion a little bit and just explain to them the choice between being called a rat and really losing your friend because they're going to die of an overdose, or having the courage to speak up, save a life, hoping that someday, yes, you are going to lose that friend. They're going to be mad at you. There might be some other people mad at you, but maybe someday that'll come around and that friend will come back and you'll have the comfort, the knowledge, and knowing that you helped save a life. So we talk about that, and I also, part of my parent message, non-police message, is that there is a horrible, horrible stigma, and really for most of us parents who have an addict as a child, we kind of impose it on ourselves to a large extent. And then it is out there in the community as well. People whisper, they talk, and you think they're talking about your kid. As parents, and I'm telling you this to empower you, because if it's not you, if it's not in your immediate family, there's somebody here that in their family, their extended family, it's there somewhere. Is anybody willing to say, I've never seen it anywhere in my family? So you guys know where we're at. As parents, when you first learn that your son or daughter has begun using opiates, prescription pain pills, and heroin, your tendency is to pull down the blinds, shut the curtains, put your arms around your kids, because you know what? You're the parent, right? What do you know as the parent? You're the only person who knows how to fix this problem, and that's your son or daughter, and you're going to fix it. So you put your arms around them, you build a little cocoon around them, you hide yourself away from the world, and all along you're chiseling out this granite wheel of fixing your children, and there's a whole stone yard full of those granite wheels somewhere, because we go through, we do the same thing over and over again, and we fail to reach out and get the help we need. So if it's somewhere in your extended family, reach out, show the compassion that it deserves. Yeah, it was a decision. It was a very bad decision. Yeah, now it's a disease, and it needs to be treated as best as it can. So flipping on my police hat, I'll give you a little background about Columbus. Back in the 90s, we were a retail city for drugs, and crack cocaine reigned supreme. And what I mean by retail is if you were a drug dealer, you had to get in your car, your boat, your plane, your train, and go to the border or Florida and buy a large quantity of drugs from someone and bring them back to Columbus. Somewhere in the late 90s, early 2000s, we became a wholesale market. So now the drug cartels, they're called transnational organizations. They operate in the United States. The cartels get the drugs, well, they make the drugs, produce the drugs, get them across the border, and then they bring them to our city. What's particularly troubling is at one time in the early 2000s, they cornered the market. Not only did they engage in the production, but they also engaged in the retail side of things, and they still do that a little bit today. So what they would do is, and it really stumped police work, law enforcement for the longest time, because the traditional drug model in Columbus and most major metropolitan areas was there's a seedy drug house in the inner city, or it's that house down the street with the weeds growing up and an unkept, house and broken windows and things. Well, the drug dealers cornered the market, and they would deliver heroin to you like a pizza. You literally just found their phone number, you called them, they would meet you in the McDonald's lot or the gas station lot, and they would sell heroin to our kids. And so it was particularly troubling for law enforcement. We've re-engineered ourselves, and we are tackling it as best we can. The traditional path or trajectory for a drug addict in Columbus or Central Ohio today is just as you've heard. It is, I'm taking pills, I'm getting pills from somewhere, and now that my body has become accustomed to them. And let me throw one thing out to you, because this is an interesting discussion. To help you better understand the addiction, I often use this analogy. Excuse me. If we took 10 people here, and none of you had tried an opiate before in your life, put you in a room, gave you opiates as much as you want all day long, 2 or 3 of you, after the experiment's over, are going to say, that's not for me. I don't feel good. It made me feel funny. I don't like it. I want nothing to do with that anymore. 4 or 5 of you are going to say, yeah, it was all right. That was good stuff. My elbow, that back, that lower back, it's been that feels pretty good. I think I can function pretty good. If I have those, I can get through the day really good and feel like 100%. Then somewhere in that group of 10 are 2 or 3 of you who are going to be off to the races. You're going to like it. You're going to like it so much you don't want to live without it, and you need it. And that's really the best way to describe how this traditional addiction works in Columbus and most big cities, is that our children try it. There's no way of looking under the hood, lifting open, looking into the brain to see if they're the ones, they're the 2 or 3 that are really going to love it and just take off running like addicts. And that's pretty much just what happened in my house, my home. And so once you're addicted to these pills, they get expensive. You run out, you've stolen everything in sight, you've lost the trust of your parents and your family members, nobody gives you money anymore. Pills are about $1 per milligram. Can't afford those anymore. You're kind of desperate, down on your luck. No addict, and if you've never talked with an addict, they will tell you they hate going through withdrawal. Going withdrawal is kind of the worst feeling in the world for them. So someone will come along and say, well, if you can't afford those pills, heroin is probably 1/10 of the cost. And they close their eyes, they look away, they squeeze a fist, and then they use drugs. They use heroin for the first time. So I encourage you to take advantage of the resources that Tyler's Light has for you today. If you're the person who's going to say, if you say to yourself, if you walk out of here today and say, that's not my problem. Yeah, I know some people, that's interesting, Bob or Steve or Susie. They got that going on. Now I understand, I feel better, I feel worse for them. And that's all you do, then you're really not helping the situation at all. Nobody raised their hand when I asked if nobody had this in their family. If you're not taking these resources forward, and what I mean by that is if you wait until somebody comes to you and says, oh, my son and daughter is addicted, it's probably too late. We measure recovery from opiate addiction in years, not months, years. What I implore or I beg of you is that if you have teenage kids in your family, young adults in your family, you're worried about them, you just want to be a good parent, a good aunt and uncle, and you want to share information with them, go to the Tyler's Light website, sit down with them, go through all the videos. I guarantee you will have a measurable impact on their life. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to go to a little Q&A, and as you sit over there and listen to them talk, you got 50 things I didn't tell you, but we don't have 3 hours, right? So unless you want to stay for 3 hours, I can talk. No, I don't want to do that. Just to show you how, again, prevalent this is, if you read the Dispatch, which I do every day, I'm kind of anal about it, 2 or 3 days ago, front page, middle-aged attorney. Remember the story? Anybody read it? Yeah. So she got her hip replaced. She's in her 40s whatsoever, and she's taking her pills as her hip hurts, and then she realizes she sweats at noon, 3, and 9 every day. She's like breaking down, going, what is going on? And she's an intelligent person. She's an attorney. So she goes to her doctor, goes, what's wrong with me? I'm like, going through menopause or something, and I just kind of break out these 3 or 4 times a day. He goes, well, what are you doing? Well, had this, and I'm taking these Percocet or something, right? Vicodin. He goes, oh, you're going through withdrawals. What do you mean? So said, okay, how do I stop this? So I just go home and get in the closet and hold on for a minute. He goes, no, you don't want to do cold turkey, but if you think you can, take a shot. Because she realized she started calling these rehab places, she has to go through rehab, through a withdrawal, a medically assisted, supervised withdrawal, and they were all full. There was a problem there. That's in Ohio. Every state you can think of, there are weeks and weeks. If you ever heard of Maryhaven, 2-week waiting line. You can't get in. There isn't a place that has an open bed right now. So she said, okay, I guess I'll try to do this at home. And she said, they said it's going to feel like the flu times 10. You know, the flu feels like that's pretty bad. She goes, it wasn't that. She goes, I thought I was going to die. I couldn't walk up the stairs. I was almost like, felt like I was suicidal. That's the withdrawals from opiates. Could you imagine a 16, 18, 21-year-old going through that? That, you know, the brain isn't done forming until they're 24 years old. That thing we talk about making decisions, prefrontal cortex, it's not done, and they're going through withdrawals. So you can only imagine the magnitude of an opiate withdrawal. So I thought that was a very good article. A middle-aged mom, right, just had a procedure. And I've met tons of professionals that got hooked in the medical field. There's a lady that runs something called New Beginnings down in Waverly. It is a faith-based rehabilitation place. I think they have 40 beds. They take no money from the state or federal government. It's strictly donations. If you ever want to give to something, find New Beginnings. She was a nurse in Hilliard. Her husband is a clergy. He runs a church. She had a procedure, got hooked on the pain meds, started stealing from the hospital and her patients. So the judge said, you know what? We're going to make an example of you. We think you're hiding behind this white-collar crime. Your husband's a clergy. You're a drug dealer. Put her in prison for 2 years. She's a mom. Her kids were at home. Like, that's crazy, right? So she's another story. When she got out, the judge was the first one there to say, hey, I goofed up. You shouldn't have went to prison. She goes, you know what? God has a way of doing these things. And then they moved from Hilliard down to Waverly, Piketon area. She started a faith-based recovery center, and it's amazing what she does with just donations. So if you ever look this thing up, it's really cool. We're one of a few countries that actually advertise drugs on TV. I think it was Becky talking about TV, some commercials you see. We advertise drugs at commercial time. So look, besides buying a Honda and a Toyota and a McDonald's burger, watch what else is on there. So I think they're going to curb that now. There's somebody stepping in, but we advertise drugs. One of 2 countries in the world that do that. So we're kind of our own worst enemy. Sports Illustrated, everybody knows who that is. Well, 2 articles came out in the same month. I've been a subscriber for 20 years. One was about Rex Chapman. Everybody know who that is, maybe middle-aged guys. Played basketball, University of Kentucky, successful, or NBA, 14 years. You can YouTube it. There's videos of him walking into an Apple store with a gym bag and just raking all his things into his gym bag. 14 years in the NBA, he probably made, I don't know, $40, $50 million. He's hooked on opiates, prescription pain medication. Ryan Leaf was a quarterback, a drafted, big bust. So it happens a lot. And the other article is high schoolers. High schoolers getting hooked on pain meds because of prescription. But I've had some great stories recently that a law enforcement officer, Licking County, walks in, his son just got hurt in a football game, I'll meet you at the hospital, goes in. The 16-year-old and the doctor are having a discussion, and as the sheriff sitting behind him is listening, and the kid is denying prescription pain medication for his knee. And the doctor said, well, it's going to hurt, so it's going to, you're going to need this. He goes, what is it? And the doctor told him, and the kid says, is that opiate-based? And he says, yes. And he thought, look at the kid like he's, what is he, a scientist or something? So they get in the car, riding home. The sheriff said, to Junior, said, what was that conversation you just had with the doctor? Where did you learn that? He said, some guy came from something called Tyler's Light to our school in Utica, and we learned about this stuff, and that's the stuff that they gave him. So I said, no, how about that? Give me some Tylenol 3, give me a bag of ice, but that's what we did before the late 90s. So we can make it through. My wife was worried, Wayne, what about those kids? What if they need it? I said, we survived, right? It's no different. So it can happen. So I'm going to open up this thing. I don't know how you have to use your outside voice. You got some questions and gear it to anybody here. Angie, you get to go first? Oh. Another Eastern Ohio person hiding back here. You got to have some questions from this. There's 2, right? So we'll start close and then we'll work our way back. She's asking, where does drug testing your child fit in? And I'm gonna give that to these two because they have to deal with that. Before I forget, tell you something that we've done out in Pickerington, and you may have heard of this thing. It's called Drug-Free Clubs of America, long name, but Drug-Free Clubs. You can Google it. It's based out of Cincinnati. It's about a 10-year-old organization. So it's a voluntary club, high school club. Kids will say, I'm going to sign up, I'm going to be drug-free, I'm going to prove it by taking a drug screen to be in the club, and then we'll take drug screens throughout the year. And why would a high school student join a club like that, right? You're goody two-shoe kids, you're high achievers. This one is rewards-based. For example, the top 10 closest parking spots. Makes sense in Olentangy, Pickerington's big school, so there's 1,000 cars. The 10 closest spots right in front of the front door, those are drug-free club members only. Big signs, just like the handicap signs, and they raffle them off monthly. They get to park up front. They get a free milkshake every month from the people in the food service. Like Fridays are line cutting days. They take their card and go, sorry dude, I'm up front. I'm in drug-free clubs. Athletic passes, stuff like this. And then out in the community, they go out to the retailers, and if, fast foods, wings, pizzas, bowling alleys, theaters, you go talk to them, tell them about the program, Kroger's and all this, and they go, absolutely. They'll give them, I think Jimmy John's the best one. It's a 2-for-1. You buy a sub, you get one free. Skyline Chili's 50% off. So then they get discounts out in the community. So they're getting treated differently. They're getting rewarded for making a good decision. So that's something we did. I don't want to go into that too much, but Licking County might try to start it in all their schools. Ross County did it in all their schools. So it's getting big. If you have mandatory drug testing in Olentangy schools for athletes.
Yes.
They do?
Yes.
For all three of them?
Yes.
Just for athletes, right?
Correct.
So we do too, in Pickerington, had it for 20 years, we're like the dinosaurs. And I always say, why do we have that? And they go, because we've had it for 20 years. What's your point? The point behind drug-free clubs is to give them an out, a reason to say no. When they are pressured, and it's gonna happen, right? They're with their buds, give them an out to say no, I might get tested tomorrow, so I don't wanna do it. Go ahead. Test for all that stuff, and if it did, that test, so there was something in there, then it gets sent to a lab, and then if they find, okay, that's what it is, it's named Ritalin, name those, so then they call the parents, say, hey, here's what we found in Susie, does she have a prescription? That's what you're gonna find out. The cool thing about it is, nobody at the school, and that's what I don't like the mandatory drug testing, drug-free clubs, nobody at the school knows, positive, negative, that is between the parent and drug-free clubs, that conversation. Then they will offer assistance, intervention, whatever that child may need. So, and then that kid doesn't have maybe a stigma attached to them for the next 2 or 3 years or 4 years that they got busted using drugs. So it takes it, the liability off the schools. And because the conversation really needs to go where? Home. That's it. Schools aren't responsible for drug use. I mean, they're in the middle because they have this captive audience. There was a question back here. Yes, ma'am.
I know you guys talked about a lot of prescription pain reliever drugs, but for those that, children that are, or adolescents that are medicated on ADHD meds, do you have any advice or insight as to how to, I don't know what my question is, but how to kind of look for signs of gateway or, I don't know, something into that lines, those lines.
Yeah, I think the studies suggest, and I know there's a slide somewhere that we have, that our children who are diagnosed that way, who are taking those medications, they are at greater risk of developing addiction. So you just have to closely watch over them. The gateway things, it's exactly what you think they are: alcohol and marijuana and tobacco. Yeah. And tobacco, the medical side, tobacco is hardwiring the brain for addiction. So you just have to be careful and watch over those things. The one thing that's out there that I think a lot of parents are missing right now, but it's becoming a little more the knowledge about it's becoming a little more widespread, is this whole idea of synthetic marijuana. There's nothing marijuana-like about synthetic marijuana. Literally all it is somebody sat with their junior chemistry set in their garage somewhere, poured some chemicals together, soaked vegetation in the chemicals, packaged it up, and then sold it to your kids, or got it out there somehow. It's illegal in Ohio. There's some challenges with trying to enforce that law because they changed the chemistry of it. But there's nothing marijuana like it. It's more closely associated with bath salts than anything else. And as far as testing, and so to add to that synthetic marijuana, then you have the e-cigarettes. Any of your teenagers have e-cigarettes? Couple? The rechargeable kind, the good ones that you get from waterbeds and stuff? Yeah, well, so that's nothing more than a pipe. It's nothing more than an instrument to do drugs with. So if your son or daughter really has a nicotine problem, you're trying to get them off tobacco, the ones you get at the carry out or the gas station, the non-rechargeable, the ones you throw away when they're done, okay, I'll buy into that. But the ones that you recharge and you buy the little cartridges for, and you load up, it's nothing more than an opportunity for them to do drugs with. And so they smoke hash oil and other things inside those. As far as testing goes, medical providers, there are some at-home things, medical providers. What you're going to find is that you're going to get really aggravated when your son or daughter turns 18 because they'll stop talking to you. And so if you're at that window, I don't have much good things to say about getting an adult child tested.
Another thing that's really important is, if your kids smoke marijuana and you drug test them, that marijuana stays in their urine for a good long time. Your kids do opiates. Opiates have a very, very, very short half-life. So if you think your child is doing opiates, you need to get that urine sample right now, because tomorrow that urine sample might be clean. It can dissipate through the urine that quickly. And the other thing about ADHD medicines is you probably already know this, but oftentimes they're used as currency. ADHD medicines are, you're having trouble studying for a test, oh here, take these are mine. It's a felony to share controlled medications. If you have a prescription and you give your pain medicine to somebody else, oh, you heard here, take one of these, it'll be great. That's a felony. So that's another reason to make sure you get rid of those medications.
Throw another question out there, but I forget your name. Carrie, just reminded me of something. I said, was this a normal crowd for this event? It's just small. I can see the heads just going, it's kind of small. But Maggie, who just had a baby, I can't believe that's the reason she didn't show up here tonight. It's lame. You guys know who Maggie is? No, we're going, who the heck's that? She's the coordinator of this thing, right? So she's a teacher, and she's 9 months pregnant, so she decided to have it this week, and she didn't show up tonight. But I thought, okay, smaller group, the subject, and Maggie said too, she goes, this is a touchy subject. I went, you're right. 5 years ago, let's say, maybe 6, Pickerington North, their place like this, auditorium, 750 seats, big, beautiful. It's a new school. And they had one of these. We just found out about Tyler's addiction. We didn't know anything about addiction. I didn't know what an opiate was. But we had to figure this out fast. We're reading as fast as we could. I said, I need to go to that. But I thought, uh-oh, if I go to that, people are going to see me. They're going to say, what is Mr. Campbell doing here? Because I'm that parent volunteer. I coach at the high school level, football, and everyone will go, they'll know, won't they, that something's wrong. So I'll wait till 7:10, starts at 7, wait till 7:10, and I'll get in, I'll sneak up in the back, and nobody will hear me, I'll have the lights out by then, and it'll be probably full. When I got there at 7:10, there were 10 people. There were 10 people giving the presentation, there were 10 people showed up to watch. So I walked in, the principal and the superintendent goes, hey, Wayne, what are you doing here? I went, oh, think fast, think fast. I got 3 kids, I didn't know this stuff. And I walked out of there almost in tears because they were saying stuff about Suboxone, methadone, opiates. I was absolutely floored and lost, going, I don't understand. How can I help him if I don't understand? And then I realized why people don't go to those. Because if you go, you might be raising a white flag going, this is in our house. Secret. But the reason a lot of people don't come to this It's in their house, and they're not going to show up here and let the cat out of the bag. So, negative social stigma, until we can turn that thing around, that, as she said, it's a disease. Cancer, you know how big cancer is, right? How many pink ribbon races are there? It's all the time. Everybody has pink ribbon cancer races. We should. Everybody's been touched by cancer. Addiction is more prevalent than cancer in our society. Not more than diabetes, more than cancer. That's huge, but we're afraid to talk about it openly because we think it's a choice. Questions? Any other ones? Yes?
Sure. So I told the Dean of Student Services, there's a Dr. Brad Lander that does about a 90-minute presentation, and he talks in depth about the chemistry of what happens inside your brain, why it has protection around it, so few things can get to the brain, and he really does a great presentation, and I would encourage you to ask Dr. Lander to come and give it to your students and you as well. But there's new receptors in your brain, your pleasure centers, okay? And they're also called opiate receptors. And you get pleasure when you exercise, or you eat chocolate, or you laugh, you do things, and it releases your pleasure sensors, and your opiate receptors are happy, okay? So then you take opiates. Well, now you don't have to work for this happiness. You don't have to exercise. You don't have to eat anything. You don't have to laugh. You just eat this pill, and these receptors go, woohoo! Okay? Some people, 2 out of 3 of the 10, don't like it. You know, it actually makes them sick, and I don't understand that science. I know that's a fact. Some of them will develop a chemical dependency to the medicine, but not a true addiction. But in some people, a switch flips in their brain, and the brain says, I want some more of those, and you're going to go get them for me. Oh, he's got a video. Oh, good. That'll be better.
Drugs change your body chemistry. This means you are not you anymore. This graphic shows a normal amount of brain activity, while this graphic shows a very reduced brain activity of someone using drugs. The more of a drug you take, the more of it you need to feel normal. This is how addiction happens. And because we're all different, addiction can happen to you by taking drugs just one time. You are not you anymore. You can't decide, remember, hope, dream, or feel. Drugs change your body chemistry into something you can't control. You are no longer you when you're on drugs.
I guess we're running out of time. But that power, that brain telling those people, you are going to get this for me. This is what my son told me one time. He said, Mom, if you can imagine hating something more than anything else in the entire world, because addicts really hate using. They hate it. He said, but you spend every ounce of your energy day in and day out chasing it. That is the disease of addiction. The brain takes over. It tells you you're going to get me this stuff. It tells you I don't care what you do to get it. And that's what happens. And you really are powerless over it until usually you have enough bad consequences that you have to face something. But
can you change the brain?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, so the current science is perhaps, depends on what age they started using, As Wayne mentioned earlier, the brain isn't fully developed till 24, 25 years old. And so once you start using, you start becoming addicted, parts of your brain start closing down, and the center of your brain, it's referred to as a squirrel brain by a guy at OSU, flares up and becomes more active. Studies show that even a year, 2 years, 3 years after abstinence, for most of these addicts who started in their late teens, early 20s, the brain never fully recovers. So, and I think that my stepson's living proof of that. I think there is permanent brain damage. His developmental level, even though he's turning 30 here next week, is about 17 years old. He really just, he stopped developing at that age. And he has been somewhat abstinent over the last couple of years.
Yeah, we're gonna respect your time. Two things. Was that different? Think about our level. We were in school, and I always tell the kids this. Remember our TV-made drug, don't do drugs commercial? There was a hot black skillet on a stove. Guy held it, and everybody laughs. I do this in school, and all the teachers are like going, oh no, I remember that. The egg, this is your brain, and they crack the egg, drop it on stuff. So what's that noise? The kids go, shh. I went, yeah. So it's frying, and they get extra brain on drugs. I had the hardest time comprehending that. He says this is more scientific, right? They're telling them, because if I ask, I don't care if it's junior high, high schoolers, what's dopamine? You ever heard that in health class? And they'll raise their hand. And they make a pretty good explanation. They'll go, makes you feel good. Body releases chemical, makes you feel good. I went, it's pretty good. So we keep it in elementary term when you show them that thing, and they say, this is how it does. And then you give it drugs, it'll stop making it because it's very smart. It's a great machine. But then you stop using drugs and it didn't flip back on. So now you're in this la-la land, not feeling good. So how did you feel good? You go back and reach for. So it's kind of a natural progression. Out at the table out there, there's a lot of good literature you guys could have, a little bit about everything. But there's a book out there that always parents like that. It's about marijuana and teenagers, stuff like that, kind of like that gateway thing. So any other questions here? Great group. It's obviously a hot subject. Anybody else? Yeah, thank you very much. I'm gonna turn this over and get some.
Thanks so much for coming. It is our last forum. Please, please, please fill out the evaluations. We read every one.